Hi, I'm going to show you how to set up an initial course in VHL Central today. This is for teachers and districts that do not use an integration system, meaning you are not logging in through your district portal and you do not have a single sign-on feature. That means that you're going to go directly to vhlcentral.com and create two things. You're going to need to set up a course in the system, and your students will need to manually enroll. Now, I am going to log in as an instructor. The most important thing to know at this point is that instructor access only comes through your sales specialist. If you attempt to set up an account on your own, you will be set up as a student and will not have access to the teacher platform. So I'm going to log in as an instructor. So I'm going to click login. This is me entering my classroom for the first time. I have my classroom, but I do not have my class set up. So this is the bookshelf. You will have access to any programs that you or your district has purchased. So I'm going to use a program as an example, but understand that all of the programs set up the same way. So I'm going to use Get Ready, Get Reading, grades 6 to 8, but regardless of the ELD or literacy program you're using, all of the setup is the same. So I'm going to click My Dashboard. And I will have a blank canvas. This is my classroom, but I need to set up the class. Up at the top, we have these tabs up here, and I will briefly go over what they contain. Over here on the left-hand side, you'll see the word courses with a plus sign. You will click the plus sign and you will add a course. If you have this option to select express or custom setup, the best play is to always go with custom. Just remember this little mnemonic that right is right. Custom will allow you to pick and choose the assignments that you want to assign your students. So we're going to click custom and we're going to move from left to right as we set up our course. We're going to give our course a name. And in this case, I'm going to call it English Language Development 1. Notice I'm not choosing a class period to name it. I'll explain that in a few minutes. You can leave the default if you would like. This is based upon your purchase. I tend to leave it alone. If you would like to go through your options, you may. Your start date by default will be today's date, and then your end date will be one that you choose. Best play is to just pick a date that's a few days after your last day of school, because once we archive the course, it's a little bit more difficult to get into once it is tucked away. You still can access it, but you can save yourself a few steps by simply clicking the box. I clicked it with my mouse, and I'm going to pick a date that's a few days after my last day of school. So in this case, I'm going to choose a date of June 26th, and then I'm going to click Next. Now we're in the content section. I tend to leave this alone. Again, this is based upon the access that you have through your purchase. Now we're going to select the standards. By default, all of the standards are checked. Best rule of thumb is to only select the standards that apply to your given district and or state. So I'm going to uncheck the course standards that I don't need. So in this case, I will only leave checked WIDA standards and Common Core state standards. I need to scroll in order to click next, and it's just a safety to make sure that I'm going through all of the features. I like to leave this alone. This will allow access to all units of the text. If you do not want all units to be revealed to your students, then you can select which ones you want to be visible. Allow students to see the estimated time necessary to complete assignments. By default, we check that. Some districts and teachers like to use this as a gauge. so that students will know beforehand about how long an assignment should take them. I prefer to uncheck it because I don't want students to know beforehand how long an assignment should take. I will always know how long that assignment should take, and I will also know how long the student spent on it through my teacher access. The system will tell me if that student spent perhaps 2 minutes on a 20-minute assignment. You do want to enable individualized assigning. You can see examples and change these settings if you want. If you choose and decide that you don't want the choices that you made, you could always go back and edit it later, and I'll talk about that too. If you check these, this will allow students to directly submit requests for assistance to you in your system. I prefer to leave them unchecked. This will go to you as an email. I prefer the students to talk to me directly. Again, you can check it, and if you decide that that is not preferable, you can always go back and change it later. I only allow my students to chat in chat activities. That is just my teacher preference. You can always change that. And then we click next. We do need to set up a gradebook. Whether or not you use our online system, you must have a gradebook in place. We do have a video tutorial, but I'm going to show you how easy it is. Here we have our gradebook categories, and over here on the right, we have an orange bar that I like to call the cup, and we need to fill the cup up with 100% of weight and turn this bar completely blue with 100% before we can move on. So I'm going to add a category. You can add as many or as few as you like. If you would like one category of just all classwork or participation, you have that option, so long as your category or categories all equal exactly 100%. You're going to name this. These are suggestions. So I'm going to call this one CW for classwork, and our little yellow dot is going to follow us. We're going to click next. I'm going to make this for today worth 50%. These are suggestions. You don't need to follow them. We click next. Do we want it for a grade, or do we just want it for credit? We can also drop the lowest number, the lowest grades if you prefer. I will drop the 2 lowest grades. I click next. Now, it says assignments in this category will have the following number of attempts with exceptions. If you see the details, some activities only allow 1 attempt. For example, a true false, open-ended, meaning many responses, etc. The best play is to allow your students to have more than 1 attempt when allowable. Here's the difference. If you only give your students 1 attempt and you're not satisfied with their performance and you would like for them to do the activity again, you can delete the activity, reassign it, and then the students do the entire activity over again. That's okay, but preferably they will only need to do corrections of the ones that they missed. And that is what is allowed when you have this setting. So if students have 2 attempts and they are not successful on their first attempt, they only have to make corrections on the second attempt. And again, you can always change this later. We click next. Capitalization and punctuation, if you check it, it will add more rigor. You can always add this later through the year. We click next. With the enhanced feedback feature, it will allow you to type in comments and in some cases even record your voice giving feedback on assignments so that the students can get that feedback to grow. We click next. You decide if they can submit late or not, and if they will receive any penalty. This is how I prefer to do it. We click save, and now our cup is half filled. We can't even move on until we fill it. So now I'm going to add another category. Notice that I can edit, I could delete. You cannot delete once you have grades in the system because then your points will be skewed. So for today, I'm going to add one more category and I'm going to go through that same process again. I'll call this one HW for homework, and then I proceed through the exact same process. But I want to draw your attention to an option. You can vary the conditions of each category, or what we call a bucket. So for example, I wanted to take classwork for a grade, but for homework, I will only accept it for credit, for a pass-fail completion grade, and I'll drop the lowest 5. I can do that. And then I just continue with the rest of the process, and then I click save. Now my cup is 100% filled, 50 and 50 is 100, and now I can move on. Here we have a summary. This is a summary in a PDF format of everything that I just completed. You can print this out, keep it for your records, and submit it to your stakeholders. The save button only became active once I scrolled all the way down. I click save, and now it will ask if I want to create a section. Yes, you do want to create a section. We're going to click yes. And here is where we're going to give that section a name. In this case, I'm going to call this period 1. This is where you can actually separate your individual class periods, even if you only have one. The difference between a course and a section is this. A course is the textbook you're using. A section is the roster. So for example, if you are teaching out of Get Ready, Engage, Bridges, but you only use one textbook, all throughout the day, you will have one course. But if you use that textbook in 3 different class periods, you will still have one course, but 3 sections. So again, the difference is a course is the textbook you're using, and a section is the roster. You can add additional information if you want. You do want to allow new students to enroll. It says all upcoming assignments available to students. This is a live link. You can change this if you would like. What this will allow is it will allow students to either submit or not submit assignments well in advance. This is something that, again, you can gauge your students' aptitude for turning in work early or not, and determine what is the best fit for your class. These you do not need to touch if you don't want to. There is your name. You also have this button right here that says add or edit additional instructors. You may or may not have this option. If you have more than one teacher in your school, perhaps a co-teacher, a buddy teacher, a team teacher who is teaching out of the same course textbook as you, you might see their name pop up. When I click this open, I am going to see many people in my organization. You might see no one in your organization, you might see several. But if you do, I want to explain the options. Option number 1 is to not use this feature at all. And what this means is that no one has the keys to your classroom. No one can go into your platform to view or change anything. And that is acceptable, but there are some safeguards in place if you have this option. Option 2 is to have an assistant. That person has view-only capabilities. We find that sometimes this might be a student teacher or a paraprofessional, anyone who is working with the children. The last option is a co-instructor. A co-instructor has all the rights and permissions of your course that you do, except what we're doing right now. So that could be a great asset to you in a pinch if you're going to be absent or if you're running late and you need someone to get into your platform and assign a test, print out a document. They cannot change your gradebook, but they can grade assignments. So for example, I set the homework and the classwork at 50% apiece. Your co-instructor cannot change that, but they can maybe grade something that was turned in. Again, these are great options. When you are complete, you scroll down, you click submit, and now we have our course. If we need to edit the course, such as edit the standards or change the gradebook, we will do that right here. If we want to edit the section, for example, if you have a team teacher who maybe has left, or maybe you didn't have a co-teacher at the beginning of the year, and then you added an instructor, you would click this gear shift right here, and you could edit the section right here. You could add sections. So if you have, for example, a period 1, and then later on you add a period 4, you can add a section. The benefit to having sections is that you can batch assign, meaning I can make assignments in period 1 and they will mirror and reflect in all of my courses if I would like to do that. So many options and benefits to keeping your course the same, yet your sections separated. So now we have our course, and here we have all of our hyperlinks. Once you have students enrolled, your roster will be right here. So this is the part that I want to talk about next. We have the ability to view as a sample student. This is a wonderful feature that you should employ regularly. When you click view as a sample student, you will see the student interface. It's a wonderful way to teach digital literacy and to model what the students will see and how to navigate their platform. In learning tools, this is where they have their interactive textbook. They can find their assignments, but their assignments will also reflect right here, and it's all hyperlinked. They can see their grades. Everything is available. When you're ready to return to your teacher platform, you'll go all the way up to the upper left and click return to your name. Now it's showing that we have one student enrolled, and it's just the sample student, and that student is not taking up a license in your platform. But I'm going to log out because now that we have our classroom, we need to have some students enrolled. So I'm going to log out, and again, we have our teacher login, but if we scroll down, we'll see create an account. This is something that you can model on your smartboard or your whiteboard and walk them through. So students need to set up their own accounts because they are not integrated either. This is what we call manual enrollment. So they will click create an account and they will fill in all of these pieces. I've gotten questions many times if teachers can do it themselves. That is completely allowable. They do need an email address, preferably their school email, which is what many schools do, because this is how we will connect your students to our system. They will create a password and enter in all of this information. If you do it for your students, you can use what you would like, and then they will create an account. All of your schools are in our database, and they will start to enter their school and to enter their course. So what this is doing is this is registering your students in the system. But just like with the school district, once they're in the school district, it doesn't mean they're actually enrolled in your school. And that is the next process. So this is them creating accounts. I'm going to show you another way to get them in your classroom if this is preferred. So I'm going to go back to our main login page, and I'm going to log in again as a teacher. So let me go into our course. And you can enroll students this way as well. So we can click on student, and we have two buttons right here, add, drop. Now, it's very important to emphasize that your students must have accounts set up first in order to add them. They need to be registered in your school district in order to be in your classroom, right? So I'm actually going to show you how to drop first, and it might make a little bit more sense to you and give you some clarity. Here we have our sample student. But if our sample student maybe drops our course or moves away, we could just drop them off our roster. And we go here and we click drop. I have a little box. All I need to do is check it and watch what happens to the drop box on the right. Now that becomes active. I simply click the button and the student is no longer in my course. It is the same process for adding. So let's go back to adding, and it works the same way. So we click add. It says search by name, username, or email. So we can start to type in a student's email, username, what have you, and it will start to auto-populate. And once we click search, we find their names, we click the boxes, and we click add. If it says student not found, perhaps that student has not created an account yet, but it's very simple to do. And notice I click the get ready, get reading icon to bring me back to home base. And it's very simple to do, and you will see all your students rostered here. In the last few moments, I just want to show you where some of the basic functions are that you will learn more about in the onboarding process. When you want to assign activities for students to complete, we'll go to the Assign Activities tab. We can assign assessments. My content is what I call the digital file cabinet. So any assignments that you created yourself, any documents, any videos that you've uploaded, you can find them here. You can also assign via an assignment calendar that will allow you to filter by the type of assignment you would like: open-ended, auto-graded, true, false, speaking activity, etc. And you could also assign based on standards. Under grade, this is what I call the digital turn-in box. So when students submit work to you that you need to grade, it will either appear right here, or you can find more information under the grading. If students turn in work early, ahead of the due date, it will be in the upcoming grading. This is very important because it will not appear on your dashboard. So if students tell you that they submitted work and you don't see it on your dashboard, chances are it's in this bucket right here. And all of the assignments will be hyperlinked, and you could just click them open, and it's very easy to do. This is where the grade book is, and this is where your data is. As you're gathering data in terms of assessments, in terms of standards-based proficiency, all of that will appear in the Analytics tab. And we can see additional information as we dig a little deeper. Under Teaching Tools, this is where we have our Teacher's Edition. This is where all of your printable resources are. This is a very good feature. All of your printable assessments, all of your pacing guides, a wealth of materials. Your school-to-home connections, anything that is a Word document or a PDF will be in the Resources tab. The V-text is where your student interactive textbook is. This is what you could project for whole group instruction, and this is what the students use when they're in their digital platform. Notice that we have it under Teaching Tools. If you remember, in the student sample, we had it under Learning Tools. Any vocabulary that you add to their vocabulary list will be here. I'll explain a little bit more about where to find these in a better location in a moment. This is a new feature. This is very exciting. We've had many of you ask for PDF images of the actual practice book pages. That is right down here. We click it, it's its own window, and now you can project the actual page number and the visual image of that PDF that your students are seeing in those print practice books. Any student communications are right here. I want to go into Assign for just a moment because I want to show you what else is under Assign Activities. Assign Activities also contains any ancillary materials that are not part of the student's main textbook. So for example, this is where our Get Reading is. If your district or school has purchased the Get Reading series of those supplementary readers, you can find them here. Any practice book activities that correspond to many of our what we call slices or strands will also be here. So for example, in Connect to Social Studies, Explore, Learn, Practice, Communicate, Practice Book. Anything that does not say practice book is part of the student's main textbook, what we call their work text. That is the colored book with the colored images, and that is where your instruction is. The practice book is the supplementary PDF images of supplementary work to accompany the main textbook. And all of those digital activities, for example, if you want to play an audio for a whole group, this is where you will find it. So just to recap, you will find that under Assign Activities. So I wanted to give you an overview so that you know how to manually set up your course and understand some of the basics of navigation. Again, we have many videos to help. You can find those, by the way, under the Help button, under How To Videos. We have an instructor user guide, a student user guide. We have many resources to guide you. We also offer a lot of professional development. Please speak with your sales specialist for more details about that, and let us know how Vista can continue to support you. Thank you so much.